'64 as the big one, the real disaster.
Was everything ruined? Did you save something?
Well, I saved but very little, tell the truth. I didn't expect anything like this.
And some worry December 1964 will be copied in February of '96. In Portland, Sheila Hamilton, Channel 2 News.
Sheila, what can you tell us relative to the insurance picture?
Well, what we found out, Paul, is pretty disturbing. The Federal Emergency Management Agency tells us that fewer than 20% of the Oregonians who live in floodplains own flood insurance.
Some of these homes here, right on the river, have the water all the way underneath them. Fortunately, the mobile home itself is a couple feet off the ground, but residents are definitely anxious about how high this water has come so quickly, and authorities are actually considering evacuating some of these folks if the water gets much higher.
As you can see, a number of tugs are holding back the rafts right now. They actually have gentlemen out there on the rafts, hooking them together so they can get a better handle on what's going on here, so they can organize these rafts into better consolidation. But from right now, on the Willamette River at the Newport Bay restaurant, the logs are here. It was just a little bump, a little kiss, but they found out that it could have taken the whole restaurant had the logs not hit the Markham Bridge first. Are you a Portland resident?
Yes, I am.
Have you seen the river like this before?
Never seen it like this. This is treacherous. I can't believe it. What happened? Mother Nature's getting us back for all the things we've done wrong or something. I don't understand.
It's risky business for Jerry Graber, giving the heave-ho to floating debris that threatens houseboats on Southey Island.
If that stuff gets under the walkways, it could cause some serious damage.
Yes, it could. It could tear our stringers loose.
Graber says floodwaters already raised the channel so much, this piling, which usually towers over his house, is now 5 feet below the roof line. And more flooding is expected to rise above the roof lines of these cars in the parking lot. In fact, it could breach low points on the Southey Island levee.
Curran Snipes is standing by with some amazing pictures of what this water has done. Curran?
Hi, Julie. We are in Sandy, so we could bring you these pictures, but we were in Welch's earlier this morning, and quite a sight it was indeed. Hard to imagine, in fact, what we saw. A retired couple awoke this morning to the sound of their home sliding off a hillside.
That wall that's sticking out that way used to face this way.
Neighbors can't believe what happened to Curtis and Margaret Wilder's home. The retired couple was asleep upstairs in their log cabin when they felt a rumble.
I said, this is the big one's earthquake, and then the house tilted up.
It wasn't an earthquake, but a mudslide that slammed into the cabin, knocking it off the foundation. Not only did the mudslide take out the house, but also a stretch of road behind it. You can see the asphalt up there, and then you can see where the road used to be. Residents say if this had happened a half hour later, there would have been a school bus coming along. Now the pavement simply disappears where a huge gash mars the landscape. This is where much of it wound up, Scosh People's house. He says a neighbor telephoned in the middle of the night to say, watch out. The torrent of water not only hit the front of the house, but went under the house and then came through the house, blowing out the back door. Look, you can see thousands of gallons of water just pouring through the house. Meanwhile, Curtis Wilder talked to his insurance agent, but the future wasn't really on his mind. What do you do now?
We're lucky to be alive. We're thankful to be alive.
Good evening, everybody, on a day we will never forget.
We are not out of this yet.
It's bad right now. All the creeks are over their banks. They're all flooding that we've seen, and there's still more to come. There's a lot of snow out here yet to be melted.
In fact, just a few days ago, roads like this one near downtown Hood River were slick and icy, very, very dangerous. Now, the temperature is rising fast. The trouble is there's still a lot of snow like this all across Hood River County, and this stuff is melting very, very fast.
The melting snow surrounds another home near downtown Hood River and floods Matthew Smith's basement.
The water is extremely cold.
So cold, you can even see ice floating in the mess. A mess created when water rushed through Smith's neighborhood.
And the water just rushes in through the windows, knocked a couple of the glass panes out.
Around the corner, more misery. Workers at the Swell City Carpet Center try to save what they can.
All these rolls of vinyl and along here and all the VCT, what happens is even though you only see the water up to here, it's actually soaking up a lot higher.
Water covers the warehouse floor, damaging everything it touches.
I'm kind of kicking myself because we could have prepared by getting everything off the floor, but had no idea it was going to be this bad.
We are asking people to stay indoors, not travel if they don't have to stay off the telephone so emergency people can communicate with each other.
It's been a soggy day over in the Oregon coast, and frankly, there's just no easy way into Tillamook County tonight. Let's go to the video and I'll show you. There are so many reasons. Here is a huge one. This is Highway 22. A huge cave-in extending about 50 feet back underneath the pavement gave way and basically forced all motorists to turn around and head back towards Highway 18. This was near Hebo. Here is the big reason most people cannot get into Tillamook tonight: a flood. Basically surrounding the community, stranding vehicles, stranding their drivers, and surrounding the entire town, making it virtually impossible to get in or out of Tillamook tonight.
They say it's the worst in 40 to 50 years, the local residents.
Floodwaters from snowmelt, buckets of rain, and high tides caught everyone by surprise. Motorists left their cars in the middle of what was once Highway 101. Scores of them, in fact, some with their windows down. Now quiet testimony of how fast the floods hit.
Never been this bad. As long as I've been here and as long as I've been, as much as I've been told, that it's never been this deep. I've never seen it this high up to the road.
Livestock were not spared either. The impact on local farms can only be guessed at, but it will be devastating. Late today, a state of emergency was declared by Governor Kitzhaber, as many farmers, helped by friends and neighbors, rushed to get their dairy herds to higher ground. And with a much soggier day to come, Tillamook County can only prepare for more flooding to come.
In southwest Washington, this is the scene in La Center. A section of Timmons Road gave way late last night, slid down a hillside. One man escaped injury just before the road crumbled.
Barbara Wood has been in Bingen across from Hood River, where the situation is also very serious.
It all started when the thaw began on Snowden Mountain. Now, Walnut Street in Bingen looks a lot more like Walnut Rapids.
I can't believe the force of the water. It's just a small creek that runs, and this road isn't usually flooded. This is the first time it's been flooded.
Dry Creek really got going around 6 this morning. By 9 o'clock, the townsfolk knew they were in trouble.
Well, this is normally just a little runoff ditch.
Rock-filled muddy water flowed steadily as people worked quickly to get sandbags in place.
Looks like the homes over here are going to be okay. They got the sandbags up in enough time, but not in time enough for the folks down the street at the Elks Lodge. They just took on 2 feet of water.
Karen Jorgensen's the president of the Women's Auxiliary. She can hardly believe her eyes.
Everything is ruined. It'll be months if we ever get open again.
Now take a look at this. This is the Clackamas River near Estacada. This is the second highest flow through the River Mill Dam in history, the second highest flow.
We found Brian Butler wading through 2.5 feet of raw sewage and water. This muddy maze used to be his basement, but he's not leaving his home along Mill Creek.
We got flooded from the opposite of the creek side of our house, so really was something that we weren't prepared for.
Butler's gambling he'll be safe, but many others who made the decision to stay put are now trapped by the river running wild.
Anxious residents of this mobile home park in Carver could do little but watch the rising tide. Upstream along Tranquility Road, it was anything but tranquil as Clackamas County Sheriff deputies used boats to rescue stranded homeowners.
Yeah, we don't really twist our arms. It's their decision. We encourage them to come out, and we're going to facilitate that as best we can, but some people are bound and determined to stay, and so we're going to let them.
This man's daughter was one of those trapped by the floodwaters.
She's worried. She's bawling, and I'm worried to get her out.
And look at it, it goes clear to the river, which is a quarter mile that way.
The waters of the Sandy M haven't been this high for more than 30 years.
I guess it's going to get worse.
Fear the waters will rise even higher has rescue crews asking people along the Sandy M's edge to leave voluntarily.
I was going to stay home, and then looked out the window, it jumped a foot. I couldn't believe it went so fast, and I don't like being on television.
Raging waters surrounded several homes in a secluded wooded area. A Coast Guard helicopter came to the rescue, but found the trees made it difficult to get 8 people out. Taking 2 at a time and landing in the middle of Highway 22, they got the job done.
Well, it was pretty wild. They did a good job, though, and I just hope the animals are okay.
Had to be scary, though.
Yeah, it was real scary. I guess the horses can swim, though.
But chickens can't, and neither can pigs. Now that 24 people evacuated from this area are safe, they're now concerned about their livestock and property.
You're looking at a live picture, and look at the Willamette right now. It's sitting at a little over 20 feet right now. They expect that to go even higher, and there is a chance by tomorrow that the river could rise above the seawall and start to flood out some of the areas in downtown Portland.
A dire prediction for downtown Portland tomorrow as the Willamette River continues to rise. Flood stage is 18 feet. Right now, it's nearly 21 feet. But listen to what Portland Mayor Vera Katz is saying tonight.
We have new information that tomorrow by 7 p.m. we expect the water to rise to 28.8 feet over the by the wall. That probably will be over the wall by then. So it's a couple of hours sooner than we anticipated. And so all the work that is being planned tonight will start tomorrow, and we'll just get it done by the time that reaches that height.
City employees have worked into the night to develop the plan to save downtown Portland from flooding.
Sandbags ring the Northwest Natural Gas building. Among the businesses on that bottom floor, a bank, a restaurant, and the offices for the Portland Rose Festival Association. Sandbagging will continue in downtown through the night and into tomorrow.
Sandbags are going down in hopes of cutting off the rising waters of Mill Creek. The stream is over its banks, flooding streets, and now threatening homes. Even though the water is already surrounding some houses, people remain optimistic sandbags will do the job.
Yeah, hope so. Yeah. We're trying. That's about all we can do, I guess.
It's tough enough getting around Salem with storm drains backing water onto streets so they have to be closed. But now there's even a bigger problem. Mill Creek here is now spilling over the bridges that it once flowed under. That's causing backups all around town and major headaches for people just trying to move around Salem. High-clearance four-wheel drive trucks are about the only motorized vehicles making it down Ferry Street. Bikes work up to chain level. On foot works about the best, but you're going to get wet. Where's the wood, Jeffrey? Where's the wood? This man and his son were picking up logs floating all over the streets. He says he's preparing for the next round of wicked weather.
If we get hit with another cold snap, I'm going to need this wood. If we don't, I've got enough to make the winter.
So this is like a gold mine for you.
I love it, yeah, and I'm cleaning the street at the same time. And giving Jeffrey a ride. He's 3. He loves it.
Floodwaters from Johnson Creek turned Foster Road into a lake. Many homes and cars in a 20-square block area are already flooded out. Despite the mayor's suggestion for voluntary evacuations, some longtime residents are staying put. The water's already at Ron Springer's doorstep, but he still won't go.
Taking the horses out, don't want them in the floodwater.
These people evacuated horses to higher ground. One boy picks up a mailbox washed away by the high water. Even the driver who gave us a ride through the flood says it's time to go.
I think they should have taken it seriously about 2 or 3 hours ago. It's a little late now.
Right now, joining me is Commissioner Earl Blumenauer, who's been out this morning, I guess, assessing the situation. Tell me what you're doing with the city right now.
Well, our crews have been working, as you know. We're having an opportunity here to have a barrier here by the seawall. Things are proceeding a little slower than we'd like because there have been some problems getting materials here on sites because of other road problems. But we really want to emphasize that this is not a place for people to come down and sightsee. There's important work that needs to be done here, and if people want to help, they can clear catch basins in their neighborhoods. They can look out after people. They can call the volunteer line, and we want people to be prudent, be careful, stay away from the work area, and think a little bit. This is a morning that it might be wise to take an extra hour or two, listen to the news, get the information, if at all possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Earl Blumenauer. Appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. I want to show you what the gauge does look like right now. And you can see it goes up to 31 feet, and it's now at about 23.5 feet. It has come up about a foot in the past hour or so. And folks that have been coming by just say this is incredible to see. They've just never seen anything like this.
It was still dark this morning at the Waterfront Park seawall, but volunteers were there doing their part. Right alongside City of Portland maintenance crews were everyday folks filling sandbags and forming a human chain to throw the bags onto trucks. What makes these folks drop everything at home and pick up shovels at the seawall? Some say they answered a public plea for help.
I saw the news this morning and they had pleaded for some help from carpenters to help reinforce the wall, and I don't know anything about carpentry, but I know how to handle a shovel.
Dan Kahn is a law student and part-time carpenter who decided to offer up his skills free of charge.
I've been wiring up the plywood to the rails and then filling up sandbags and tossing gravel around and, basically having a great time.
And volunteers were rewarded with camaraderie and a good hot meal offered by several local restaurants.
It is pretty amazing. A lot of people down here and everybody's friendly and doing their job, and however they can help, that's the mission right now.
The volunteer everyone pointed to today was Linda Swearingen. She and her friend were trying to get back to Redmond when they gave up and joined the party under the Morrison Bridge.
We've called all morning trying to head home, and we can't, so we decided to come down to the waterfront and just volunteer and help people out. And it's neat to see how Oregonians pull together.
Right here we've got just a few remnants of some sand. This is where the volunteers all scrambled to put together the sandbags. But it looks like they've got everything under control here right now. It looks like that they have got the barricades up, and that right now it's just a matter of standing by waiting to see what happens. But I do want to show you that gauge because we've been following that all day long, and you can see there that it's over 25 feet now. It's swirling just a little bit, but it's over 25 feet, and the water continues to rise.
Bless your heart.
Sure, I'd love to volunteer. You guys do a good job.
Well,
what can I do?
they need. Thank you again.
There's still quite a bit of stuff to do, and we'll be busy for some time here, but the biggest body of it, the most important part is done. We have some shoring up to do, bolting and stuff to do down there. We have some jersey barricades to place, some more sandbags, and I think we're going to put some gravel in some of these places like we have here.
Gary, if the river goes over the seawall, what happens now that this stuff is pretty well in place?
Well, we hope we just get to stand back and watch it slide on by. Basically, the barricade is to slow the water from coming over. It isn't going to stop every drop, but it's going to let more water go by than comes in.
You surprised that this went up so fast?
Yeah, I am. What I'm also, you mean the work or the water?
The work.
I'll tell you, 4 hours ago, I never would have bet on it. We had a lot of volunteers. We've had more city involvement too, and the volunteers, I think, is what really put it over the top.
The volunteers have done a stupendous job in getting all of this pretty well shored up. We've got plywood for most of the 2 miles along Waterfront Park, plywood, and 30,000 bags of sand.
The Willamette Falls area, and you can see behind me just how dramatic the picture really is. The falls have pretty much disappeared in this sweeping current that we have right now. I just talked to somebody who told me that there's normally a 25, 30-foot drop in the falls there. That has pretty much filled up, which gives you an indication that's about how high the water is.
By 6:30 a.m., the Columbia River reached 23 feet. Flood stage for this area on Columbia Way is 20 feet.
Just the awesomeness of the power of this river.
Seeing the river this high under the I-5 bridge is an eerie sight. Many residences and businesses all along the river did what they could to protect the buildings. Many have evacuated, and Vancouver isn't the only area in trouble.
I was here in 64 and there was a lot of water, but I don't remember it quite that high.
I live in Woodland and we moved our trailer out at 2 o'clock this morning
and our park is underwater.
In Washington state alone, 6 counties have declared a state of emergency, and of course this is one of them. What a mess we have all throughout the region.
We're going to switch to OMSI, right on the Willamette River on the east side here, where our reporter Jeremy Diesel is standing by. What's the latest, Jeremy?
Well, things are looking much better here at OMSI, and it's all because of these monstrous lifelines. They've now attached pumps to the basement that's been flooding for 3 days.
The crisis hour hit at 3, between 18 and 20 feet of water flooding the basement area of the museum.
It's coming in from all sides. It's not just the riverside. We've got open electrical conduits from the old building that were there. We've got cracks in the ground, cracks in the cement.
Several heavy-duty pumps weren't enough to keep up with the rising water. A basement-level main electrical power box was in danger. Water coming within 1 inch. The catch, turning off the power, would have turned off the pumps.
The savior of OMSI in this flood may turn out to be these generator pumps. They're pumping thousands and thousands of gallons of water a minute out of the basement of OMSI. You can see the outflow tanks. What's coming out of here are 9,800 gallons of water. That translates to 240 bathtubs worth per minute.
We want to go to Salem now and show you the scene earlier today to give you some sense of the human loss, the human drama, and the emotion that comes attached with a day like this.
We've lived here for, about 25 years, I guess. I can't just walk off and leave that. It's our home.
Bob Hadley has lived along Mill Creek through the 1964 flood, but this time the water is coming from the front and the back.
Much worse than the 64 flood. Much worse. I don't, and if this was the end of it, I would say they're comparable, but it isn't the end of it.
You can see underneath here, there's the water that's underneath the house.
About 40 students from Oregon City High School lined up to help out the Emporium department store after the store's basement began to flood.
They volunteered. They called us last night and said, you need help, and we said yes.
We have the first pictures from that area, close-up pictures of what exactly happened to that building. Here's a look at the devastation. What you're looking at, just so you understand the power of what happened here, you're looking at a 2-story building that had a parking complex underneath it. So not only did that building get knocked off its foundation, but then the first floor parking area was also collapsed onto it.
Incredible pictures from today. Take a look at this. Wow.
Good thing you...
Wow, look at it. It's coming down the hill here. Look at my contact.
Whoa! I knew I should have gotten out of here. Something was telling me. Oh, God. Whoa! Keep going, keep going! Can't stop. Wow. Oh my God!
Is your heart working again?
People in here can get out, and I don't know what we're going to do about that car. I have no authority.
They just picked it up like there was nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Just picked it up like nothing.
Yeah.
Set it on top of that other car.
Interstate 84, not just one, but a number of mudslides. This is in the Troutdale area. Now look at, this is I-84. See the truck just stranded there in the middle? Can you imagine? A horrible situation. This is going to take literally days. I-84 closed to the gorge for at least 4 days at last word.
Well, look at this. I would consider that an active slide. Stuff still coming down. This is going to be some time in the cleanup. We are almost sealed off in all directions in this town, given high water in every direction.
And we've just been talking about the major roads. There are hundreds of little highways and little streets that are completely blocked off. We can't even mention them all. We're just covering the major ones right now.
The good news, if you missed it earlier, Matt Zaffino, who's as good at watching the river as he is at watching the skies, told us some hours ago that tomorrow's crest, which is still expected to take place sometime around 10 a.m., will not be the anticipated 30 feet. It will crest out at approximately 29 feet, which is about 0.8 of an inch by our reckoning under the levels that we struck during the floods of 1964.
The Spencers return home to their flooded mobile home park for the first time since the Klatskanai River ran through it. Inside, Candy Spencer checks on the 2 cats she had to leave behind.
Oh, come here, baby. Oh, there she goes. Oh, baby. Oh, no.
The cats are okay, but their home is a muddy mess. All across Klatskanai, people are cleaning up.
Vernonia woke up Thursday morning to a nightmare. Nehalem River and Rock Creek flooded out the northeast Oregon timber town. Rowboats the only way to get around. Access roads were washed out, cutting off the flow of supplies, food, utility workers, and a way out of town.
The worst thing was that it happened so fast here in Vernonia. In just a matter of hours, the Nehalem River flooded the entire city. No one had time to prepare.
What was under 4 feet of water yesterday is now under a layer of mud.
Here's a look at the disaster one Oak Grove family discovered today when they returned to their flooded home.
Flood my house, there's still mud in my house from the '64 flood, so this house has now lived through 2 major floods. If this one's salvageable, I don't know. Oh, it was getting to be a real nice home. We've been working on it for about 4 years, or 4 or 5 years now, and had all brand new floors throughout and drywall.
We were here at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was like to our ankles, and this is the first time we've been in the house since 1 o'clock this morning. Good Chelsea. This is not what I expected. Not at all. My little kid, you know, I think I better get out of this water. Oh, God.
A lot of us don't know what we're doing. I'm looking at my house going, I don't have any idea where I'm going, what I'm doing next.
18 square blocks of downtown Tualatin are under as much as 2 feet of water. People used boats to get around the flooded streets today. Residents placed sandbags to prevent more businesses from being flooded.
Now we want to take you to Lake Oswego, where rising waters threaten that city tonight. Oswego Lake is overflowing its banks into the city, already flooding some businesses and homes. City crews had to poke holes into a dam to relieve the pressure. Now, earlier tonight, Channel 2's Ken Cole visited that area.
It's spilling right over the top of the spillway here, just about 6 inches from the top of the dam. A tremendous amount of water flowing through here right now as they try to relieve some of the pressure. There were a lot of folks that were fighting desperately with rising floodwaters, trying to save their homes, filling sandbags. But again, the Tualatin has just been a relentless river. Also, the Willamette River is causing the same problems here in Lake Oswego.
Pictures taken from the air today show just how close downtown Portland came to flooding. You can see this industrial area just south of the River Place Marina covered with water.
Let's move on to downtown Portland. The tense flood situation at the River Place Marina easing somewhat tonight. The water did manage to make its way into the River Place Promenade. There's the Harborside restaurant there and other businesses. However, a row of sandbags protected the businesses from any major flooding. Up in the air, you can get a better view. Images and pictures that will stay with us forever. The flooding caught the attention of the White House. President Clinton came to Portland to survey the damage on Valentine's Day. He found people coming together, neighbor helping neighbor, in a time of need.
President Clinton views the damage from above. A helicopter ride down the swollen Columbia River into Cowlitz County. On the ground, he walks through a woodland neighborhood badly damaged by the flood.
God bless you, Chef, and with us for the next song anyway.
Thank you.
President Clinton visits the home of Doug and Delois Jungnickel. This is what he sees inside. 3 feet of water in the family room, a badly damaged floor, and personal possessions left out to dry.
It's a bad flood, and these people have lost a lot, but you know, that we'll just all have to work together to help them put their lives back together.
I hope everybody in all the little towns in the United States see this, and maybe it gives them hope for the government helping them if anything ever happens. You know, it gives them a better feeling, really.
The president delivers his message of hope to about 300 people on Rhododendron Street. Most are flood victims.
We will do what we can to help you put it back together and get going in the right direction just as quickly as we can.
Next stop, City Hall. where the president praises the cleanup effort by volunteers in a small town like many others hit hard by the flood of '96.
Just don't forget, folks, this country is made up of woodlands.
After landing on the Portland waterfront, the president walked along the 2-mile barricade built by volunteers, the same barricade that many had said could not be built. And in an interview, he said the wall will serve as a symbol of what happens when people pull together.
What did you think about the seawall? The one that was built by the volunteers?
I thought it was, first of all, it was an awesome accomplishment, just the idea that it was done in a day. But I think it really symbolizes what's best about this country. You know, everybody rallied to the mayor's call. You may not believe this, but this wall has really captured the imagination of people all over the country. Everybody that's heard about it.
The president shook hands with about 300 people, many of them the volunteers who had helped build the wall.
Our country has been watching you and pulling for you and praying for you. The going will get tough again for these people in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Many of them are almost in shock now, but they will have to come to grips with the dimensions of their losses. And so I ask you all, be on the lookout for your friends and neighbors for the next few weeks, because a lot of them will have to come to grips with enormous personal loss and anxiety and pain, and they will need you then as well. Thank you. God bless you.
When this thing starts to calm down, we're all going to have to pitch together and help our fellow people who are in trouble, neighbor helping neighbor.
It'll take days, perhaps weeks, to hose down and scrape off tons of mud.
It was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. I've never seen anything like this. It really was.
Dan Landholt calls it a miracle.
They stood in here for 3 days in that water and they survived.
When you look at the neighboring farms, you understand Dan's feelings. For the grisly chore of counting up dead cows in dairy-rich Tillamook County is now underway.
Downtown Tualatin is still underwater. 85 businesses are closed.
It looked bad enough at dawn, but Department of Transportation engineers didn't know how bad until daylight, and by then, traffic on I-5 was backed up for 9 miles.
The worst hit, though, these apartments on the banks of the Tualatin River. 97 floor-level units are under 6 feet of water. The only way into the apartments for flood victims and journalists is by water.
You getting your stuff out? Yeah, just a little clothes and stuff.
50,000 cubic yards of mud. The slide hit on Friday night, just as road crews were finishing up cleanup from another slide the day before. They were only minutes away from opening the roadway to traffic.
We were cleaning up the road with one last shot of water, and kaboom, the whole thing probably 5 times bigger than the first one came down.
More than 200 people have been forced out of their homes, and no one except Mother Nature knows when they can return.
It's a world turned upside down for the Gebhardt family.
All of this stuff is clothes that were like mud damaged.
The Clackamas River raced through her home on Semple Road.
It's just devastating. I don't even think it's really even hit me yet, the loss of all of our things, our clothes, our pictures. Everything is just completely ruined in mud.
12-year-old Matt lost almost everything he owns: toys, computer games.
If you live by a river, you're going to expect whatever comes.
It just makes us feel really good that people will come out and help, because you can't do it by yourself, and you're just so grateful for people that help like this.
Those who watched him work this past week would never have guessed he's had a heart bypass. That the knees he lifted sandbags with were artificial, or that he's 83 years old. Jim Reynolds has volunteered nearly every day since last Thursday, the day he saw the flood victims on TV.
I really appreciate you working.
I think I got a whole lot more out of it than you did. Well, I don't know about that.
And there's one more thing you might not know about Jim Reynolds, that he's dealing with his own loss right now, one that makes him all the more compassionate for the people around him.
It's hard to talk about, but we had a head-on collision the 6th of December, and I lost my wife and her best friend.
Jim Reynolds' way of giving thanks for the 60 years he spent with his wife was to give back to other people.
The cleanup begins in downtown Tualatin.
Gotta get our city back up and running.
Volunteers pack up sandbags. Workers pick up lumber.
All you can do is pick up and go on.
Of course, Oregonians, you know, that's what they're famous for, picking up and going on, even when they're down and out.
Now, the lucky ones are moving back in.
It'd be expensive property if it was normally that way. Of course, it's not.
She peeked out right about here.
John Buchanan and his family went home today. The high waters are gone, but the anxiety and destruction are not.
See the bathroom, honey, how terrible that is?
Uh-oh.
You can see the watermark, but this house
All
right
over
here,
Vernonia, the feeling is the same as hundreds of families try to dry out and clean up. A giant mountain of garbage continues to grow at the end of town, filling up with waterlogged furniture, mattresses, and television sets.
Shawn Gritman is just 5, and she's seen things most adults will never see.
The boatway was very scary because it was too bumpy in the water.
Shawn is one of 4 Gritman children rescued by boat from their flooded Vernonia home. The river jumped the road and swallowed the house in 4 feet of raging water.
We'll be with family for a while, but, you know, I can't last too much longer. I mean, it'll be okay for maybe a month, but I'm afraid this is going to last a long time.
The kids are sleeping at relatives, but this temporary shelter is a comforting place for a bite to eat and some loving attention.
What is making things more difficult in Vernonia is that the 2 major highways are casualties of the heavy rains. Highway 47 has been partially washed out, and the Scappoose-Vernonia highway is blocked after giving way to the water-soaked hillside. For the last 4 days, Vernonia was an island underwater.
The Gritman's home will likely be condemned. Its front porch is ready to give way. Its back porch has disappeared in the water. The children understand the loss.
I don't want the house to fall down or all my stuff will be broken.
Shawn's stuffed animals are the only treasures that made it out. All of the children's toys must now be thrown out after being contaminated by floodwaters.
I missed my pig, and I missed my babies.
You can see the strain in the face of the young mother of 4, a mother who doesn't have a drop of flood insurance. But the toll on the children is also great. Children who lost part of their innocence in the angry waters of the Nehalem.
The Columbia River was a lot rougher last Wednesday night when Don Boswell saw something in the darkness coming down the mouth of the Sandy River.
Never have ever seen anything like that happen.
What he saw was 70-year-old Harold Jenk standing on this, all that was left of his home, a home that became a life raft when a landslide swept it into the rain-swollen Sandy River. It was just before 9 o'clock that night when tons of debris, mud and trees, and you can see just how mucky it still is, came crashing down along this section of Highway 30. It came across the roadway and unfortunately right into the place where Harold and Jackie Jenk's house used to be. But those who helped save her husband don't think they did anything special.
We don't really feel like we're heroes. We feel like that somebody was in trouble and we done what we could to help them.
They only wish they could have helped Jackie Jenk as well.
A dangerous rescue captured Thursday on home video as Clatskanie firefighters lead Irene Palomaki from her slide-damaged home to safety. To get her there, she had to cross this huge mud and timber slide. Now, 4 days later, she recalls sitting in her living room with her sister-in-law when the slide started.
We're just praying that the house held. But then you never knew when these gigantic logs was going to hit some big portion and knock the whole thing down on us.
As firefighters led Mrs. Palomaki through all this muck and debris, suddenly the earth started moving again. Another landslide heading their direction, this one captured on home video.
Did you worry about me a little bit?
The Army National Guard comes to the rescue of local farmers hit hard by the flood. Peter Giordano has more than 600 cattle trapped on Government Island with no food.
This is my bedroom. Now I don't know how you clean up a mess like this.
Few people need help more than Beulah Hoagland and her husband, Dean Mickles.
That was a room for food, canned food, and so on.
They can't start cleaning up their devastated home in Dickey Prairie near Molalla until they know how much help they'll get from the federal government, or whether they'll get any help at all. The river swept away half of Norm Hagstad's home.
There was another 40 feet out from where we stand right now. The bank was.
And in nearby Malala, the National Guard delivers water to a town where the flood destroyed city water pumps.
Thank you, my dear, for bringing that.
It took 10 hours and 3 car rides for Rob Redmond to hitchhike here from Idaho. Now he's helping people along Mossy Brae clean up from the flood. He decided to volunteer after seeing pictures of flood-ravaged homes.
I figured I'd rather go do that and do something for other people than sit and do nothing.
Everybody's really helpful, really getting down here and helping out. It's hard to believe.
When other people are hurting and other people can see that and the fact that we can help them, I mean, it's just our obligation. It's what we're supposed to do. It's what being human is about, I think.
Rob says he empathizes with the flood victims. He grew up in Southern California, where his parents are still recovering from the deadly earthquake that damaged their home a couple of years ago. Rob says he's heard things are also bad in Tillamook, and he may go there next, but adds that he's happy to volunteer wherever he's needed.
Today, little children play with the rocks in Bingen's Dry Creek. This entrance to the Eagles Lodge used to be at street level, and this pool table used to be at the other end of the room.
About a 500 to 700 pound table. And just the water was coming through so fast, just picked it up and moved it.
There's been no damage assessment yet. Right now, all they know is it's pretty high. Also pretty high are the seemingly endless mounds of rocks lining Walnut Street next to the lodge.
In fact, I asked when the guys out here on the dump truck, I said, did you guys haul that in here, to stop the water? Nope, it all came off of that mountain.
So far, about half of the rock slide's been cleaned up. But until the rest of it goes to the Bingen Eagles, the rocks are a monument to the water's power.
Cleaning up on Beach Street. Jody Lewis sprays off her children's toys. Just a few days after Thomas Creek jumped its banks and washed across the small Lynn County town of Scioto.
The river was it was running through here.
Picture living like this.
I can't win, I can't get ahead. Every time I get something done, something else has to be done.
Life is trying to get back to normal in Vernonia. But the reality is, even though the floodwaters are gone, the anxiety and depression are not.
Like this, you're up here and then you're down, back and forth, but we'll make it.
Tom Flaherty had just remodeled his home when the floods hit. Now he's ripping out insulation and waterlogged carpet. It will be a while for classes to resume at Vernonia High School, too. Ryan Ragsdale says missing school like this is no fun.
Everybody's textbooks, everybody's everything. I mean, the desks had to be taken out, put in here and hosed down. The chairs, the library's just disgusting.
But while emotional needs go unmet, physical needs like food and clothing are pouring in at a rate that is overwhelming the locals. Donations from Fred Meyer, Safeway, and thousands of citizens are flooding relief centers.
Hazel and Fred Schaller are finding the pieces of their lives that will help put them back on steady ground. Last week, the raging Lewis River set their belongings afloat in a wash of mud and contaminated water.
Look at that.
Fred Schaller, who has heart disease and diabetes, was trapped in water above his truck window.
Yeah, it makes you wonder whether your time has come or not, but no, I felt I could make it.
Fred walked out of a river rising 3 feet in less than an hour. These colored pieces of material are pieces of clothing washed away in the water's rage. The Schallers still don't know how much they've lost. They're concentrating instead on what they have.
I need a mop.
Good friends who are helping them clean up.
Hazel, I never thought I'd have to come down and clean your house like this.
How do you thank them? How do you thank these people? It's not easy. Of course, they know that if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be there.
Just hook onto it and see if we can drag it. Okay, go ahead.
At this one household, the river's toll included 4 cars and 4 rooms of furniture, but their loss is nothing compared to some.
We're alive. We could have lost him.
And the Schallers find steady ground in strange places.
The floodwaters are gone, but a tide of hardship lingers over this part of the Oregon coast. North of Garibaldi, a huge landslide still partially blocks Highway 101. Nearby, another slide cut off the town of Wheeler from its only source of water. They brought what's called a reverse osmosis purification unit, filtering water from a stream near town. The effort brings thanks at Wheeler's Treasure Cafe.
There was a couple moments of sheer panic. We didn't know what our fate would be for the next 10 days. So we're very thankful.
The patio that once sat here at Oswego Point Bar and Grill was last seen floating down the Willamette.
Just kind of broke loose, and
hopefully we're going to find a lot of people's stuff. That's what we're hoping for.
Jack Stiles, a self-styled river rat, is helping people search for stuff that washed away. No easy task considering all the debris.
The stuff that hit bridges and everything come over the falls, we're just finding a lot of pieces.
Some things have already been rounded up that survived the wild river ride.
So the best I can say is, cross your fingers, have patience with us, because we're at the mercy of the river gods.
It's just like home.
I know some people like oatmeal in the morning, some people like eggs.
Leslie Jensen and her husband are playing innkeeper to neighbors whose homes were ruined by the flood.
This is Bill and Marge's bedroom and their bathroom, and Cheryl and Tom are staying in this room.
The Jensen's home is on a hill. They invited neighbors to stay when the water began to rise in the nearby Tualatin River.
We've watched our poor neighbors deal with a lot, so we feel very fortunate. And they're delightful people. You couldn't ask for better neighbors.
Insulation, wallboard. What a mess, huh?
Marge Long and her husband Bill live across the street. Marge says staying with their neighbors makes it a lot easier to get things done.
There's something about being close to the familiar, I think. And so we could see our house and it felt better.
During the height of the flood, Bob Klein slept in his boat outside the Jensen's home, but could use the phone and shower whenever he wanted.
It was like a hotel in the neighborhood, but you didn't have to pay.
Only now is survival near the town of Mist turning to cleanup.
About up to here.
Jeanette Grant shows how high the water got in her home.
Here's the window, the mark right there.
Jeanette and others are surviving on donated items stored here at the Mist School turned supply depot. While most towns and cities are well into their recovery, Mist is hardly even started. Bottled water and barrels of food arrive from flood-stricken Vernonia because the problems in this small town are huge. Luis Valera's barn was flooded, and hay that wasn't ruined is running low. He's bought what hay he can. Meanwhile, people in Mist hope the help keeps coming. They'll need it for months.
If you want to feel like a flood victim, start from the beginning. Be 20-something. Have a dream of going into business with your best friend from childhood. Find the perfect place, a 5,000-square-foot lakeside property. Spend 5 months and $225,000 building your business.
We had this all planned out over the next 2 years of how we were going to grow this business, and this wasn't part of it.
Close your doors. Steady yourself as you give away $3,000 worth of food.
We figured there was going to be some bumps in the road, but we didn't figure there was going to be mountains to climb.
Be 20-something. Watch your first business, your first dream, washed away. Breathe deep and start over.
Slabs of asphalt tossed across a field show the flood's power, but it's the bigger picture, acres and acres and acres of pasture land smothered in silt that really show the destruction. In places, the mud is several feet thick. Some say it looks like a scene from the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. It will be midsummer before fields can be reseeded and grass grows tall enough to feed dairy cows.
A group of farmers in Sisters in Redmond area brought us a load of hay last week for our younger animals. That helped a lot.
High-priced hay bales lie steaming and rotting outside his barn, and 3.5 miles of fence line disappeared under mammoth logs swept in by the flood.
Look at the size of that log, and all up and down here. Look down the river there. My gosh, it's just, it's just like a clear cut down through there.
But the amount of damage, and knowing any day feed donations may stop, have even the most optimistic here wondering whether they'll be able to make it through this year.
In the small community of River Grove, where nearly half the population has been affected by the flood, the help is received with open arms. But it's not just the Red Cross that's making a difference here. It's also the many volunteers who continue to show up every day. Out of the 125 homes in River Grove, about 25% have been devastated by the flood. Thanks to volunteers, the rebuilding has already started. And as for those who have signed the Crawfords volunteer list,
We'll pull it together, and then we'll have a bodacious party to thank everyone.
This gravel road used to lead to almost a dozen homes. Now it's a road to nowhere. Floodwaters swept over the top of this bridge on the Nehalem River just south of Highway 26 3 weeks ago. Now its center span lies at the bottom of the river. The only way to get across, small boats and an emergency rope and pulley.
I have 3 kids, and you know, they're like they want to go home, but we can't.
Waitress Joan Wilcoxon owns one of the homes cut off by the bridge's collapse. She left behind almost everything she owns when she evacuated. Now she fears the bridge may never be rebuilt.
I don't know what I'd do. My property value is lowered.
The bridge may qualify for federal flood disaster relief. Locals hope so because there's no way they can afford the $1 million it'll take to fix it.
And this all was up there, now it's all down here.
It's one of the most scenic trail systems around, offering panoramic views of the Columbia River Gorge and a half-dozen major waterfalls. But the trails around Multnomah Falls have taken a real beating in recent weeks. Huge slides have washed out giant sections of the trails, including a newly renovated part of Perdition Trail, where a $150,000 staircase project was wiped out.
neighbors and friends remove furniture and valuables from the home they fear could literally tip over. A mudslide, which started 2 weeks ago, has now left the home teetering on disaster.
It's heavier on the backside than it is the front. And so if the rest of that leaves, then you've got more weight on the backside and it could just tip over.
Utilizing huge cranes, construction crews will work throughout the weekend in an attempt to save the house.
Okay, it isn't pretty. 500 pieces of concrete, 45,000 sandbags, 900 cubic yards of rock, and 916 wood panels lining Portland's beloved riverfront. But make no mistake, 1 week ago, the wall was Portland's last defense against a rising river.
And at the time, I think all of us were thinking, we've got to get this thing done or we're in trouble.
City workers Steve Barrett and Bill Long scratched out an engineering plan and didn't wait for city approval to buy the supplies. They knew they were in a race against the river, but they wouldn't have won that race without the help of hundreds of volunteers.
The emotions I felt when the entire city came out to help. See if I can make it through this.
It's okay, I don't mind.
No, it was spectacular. Beyond my wildest dreams.
In the end, it was a mile long, 4 feet high, a symbol of what can be done when a town pulls together.
You're gonna break it, Trent!
It sounds like any other school, but there are signs this first day back at school is different. Inside Vernonia's Washington grade school is the high water mark from the flood that tested this building and tested the patience of students shut out of classes for nearly 3 weeks. Kids are glad to be back.
I think it's good.
What do you miss most about it?
Probably my friends and stuff. It's good, and I talk to them about the flood.
Teachers took classes themselves to spot flood-related depression in children. So far, there's been very little.
We're totally surrounded. The only access to this school was by boat.
Principal Randy Altman carries pictures comparing the damage to cleaned up classrooms.
And everyone just pulled together, and bit by bit we reclaimed what the flood had taken.
But brown bag lunches are still the rule. Health inspectors say the cafeteria isn't clean enough to serve hot meals, and the freezer room needs work too.
You just told me this has to be done. This all has to be done in here.
Next door, Vernonia High School's even worse. Classes won't start again for another week in portable classrooms that began arriving today. All part of a recovery that's hardly finished, but not nearly hard enough to break the spirit of those living here.
Channel 2 viewers showed they have the spirit of the Northwest by opening their hearts and their checkbooks. They donated $500,000 to our flood relief effort, money that went directly to people who need it most. Here's a look at how that spirit of giving made a difference.
How many did you lose and how they died?
We lost 112, and they all drowned, basically. Some of them.
When floodwaters forced the Nearings to evacuate, they took the herd to the highest ground available. But days later, they found it wasn't high enough.
Yeah, we flood here. All the pastures get water every year. It's no big deal. You don't think nothing of it. But nobody would have ever guessed it'd get that deep. Come on, ladies.
So to help out, we dug into our viewers' flood relief fund to buy 10 Springer heifers. These cows could have cost up to $1,400 apiece. But Nearing's neighbor also wanted to help out, so he cut $550 off the price of each cow.
This is our camping area. As you can see, we got food and stuff, shelves around, books to read.
The Beebes have been living in this small prayer room at the Life Center Open Bible Church ever since the flood forced them from their home. Their woodland trailer home condemned, their belongings inside rotting away.
Worked for years, and now it's in 1 second it's gone from our money. It's just an awful feeling. It's pretty hard to take.
One thing the Beebes say they need the most is a bed. When it arrived today, the Beebes approved. We've also bought a new refrigerator to help out in the kitchen. That is when they can afford to buy a house that has one. 75 tons of hay rolled into the Nehalem Valley today, compliments of Channel 2 viewers. Farmers anxiously unwrapped it like a Christmas present they never thought they'd get. This hay, trucked all the way from eastern Oregon, is destined for 40 flooded farm families.
They came in here with a motorboat and rescued us off the top of the stack here.
Penda Meeker says the hay the flood destroyed in their barn saved the life of her family. Boss. Now she says this donated hay will save their livelihood by keeping their cattle alive.
Well, the chest of drawers goes in the front bedroom. Okay.
It's only a delivery of donated furniture, but to Arvel and Leola Sessions, it's a truckload of hope.
Yes. Lived for 85 years, and then you have something like this happen.
Like most people in Woodland, the Sessions didn't have flood insurance. The water rose so fast they had only 2 hours to get out. That meant watching as many of their life's possessions sank. But at 83 and 84, Leola and Arvel are starting over with a new bedroom set donated by our viewers. In Mist, it's all hands on deck to recover from the flood.
Thanks, Joe. What's you doing things?
What am I doing things?
Yeah.
So we can have a house back together.
40 sheets, that'll be 20 of those packs.
Your money paid for construction materials to help rebuild nearly 40 homes. While government money is also helping with flood relief, many families say it's too little, too late.
They've been too slow, for one, and for another, they don't cover everything that's needed. And this really fills in the gap.
Keep going, you'll have it all the way in.
And filling in the gaps, one piece at a time, is how the people of Mist are building back their lives. And some of your flood relief money is going back to school. Vernonia High School is still digging out from the flood. Behind me, the new quarters for students to hold classes in while their high school's being remodeled. And once it is, the gym is filled with donated